Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is I want to get this floor panel back in place. Remember, I've already got the patch. In fact, it's right here. This was originally kind of cut. I know I left a lot of spare out here, but this was kind of cut to length. I'm pretty sure one of the key things is this surface, this flange surface of this panel wants to be flush against that, and then I just shift it left and right to where I want it. And unfortunately, that right there is about roughly where it wants to be. I've got a little bit of a gap. That's not too bad. I can probably bridge that. That gap over there, I didn't do something there right. I'm going to have to look back at my old video and figure out how I did. I think what I did is I didn't have all this down. This was sitting up, and I tried to translate it, and it just didn't do very good. I'll do that differently on the other side. I learned a lesson. I tell you what, let me get this clamped in place so it's kind of right where I want it, and then we can start looking at how we're going to solve, and I can etch that other side over there. So let me do that real quick. I've got this now installed where this is nice and flush, and this is just, it's the opening in the Jeep itself is too wide. If I center it, I've got issues on both sides. This is the tougher side, so I went ahead and shoved it up where I got a nice gap along here, and I'm going to take all my air and put it on this side, because this will be a lot easier to fabricate a one piece versus trying to fabricate patches on either side of this thing. So I'm now going to just scribe out. This is where I want this. I'm going to scribe it out, and we'll get it set in, and then we'll figure out how to put a patch in here. With all that extra now cut out, this drops right in place. It is absolutely perfect. This will be weldable all together. I'll need an extra little piece in here to make up for my boo-boo. This is fitting nice and flush here. Everything seems to be, I'm going to take this panel now back out, and I need to prep underneath here with some weld through, as well as just some rust treatment stuff for things that I won't be able to get to later. So I'm going to take this back off and try and just start treating this area, getting prepped for actually putting to welding it in. I just finished preparing this area. I used a wire brush to kind of clean all this off, got all the loose rust off, as well as I went ahead and drilled 3 holes in this flange that'll weld from the back side to my panel. And I also spray painted it with some self-etching weld through gray primer from Eastwood, as well as this side over here, because these are both lap welds, and so they needed some kind of a primer under that. So I got all that prepared, as well as this section here. It had just some surface rust on it and stuff, so I went ahead and again cleaned it. But then I put on Eastwood's rust encapsulator, make sure that that won't come back. This would be hard to get to once this panel is put in place. So I got all that taken care of, as well as I prepped the panel. So for the panel, I went ahead and ground off the paint around the edges for my welding. This is that area where those 3 holes will spot weld into. I ground that down and then put that gray primer there. And on the other side where this flange is, I went ahead and cut my plug hole holes here, as well as ground this down and then put that primer on there too. So I'm about ready to mount this in place, take a look at it, make sure it's okay, and then we'll get started. I'm gonna weld it in. Alright, panel's back in. Everything seems to be fitting right. I had to put a little wedge in here to get it right where I wanted it. I'm going to start over here, very flush. Over here it's raised up. I'm going to, as I go, I'm going to make that adjustment. It's very flexible. I've seen a very reputable welder adjust as he went, and I think that's exactly how we're going to, very flush over in here. I'll make this adjustment as we go. And I think that's going to be it. Let me get started right over here. Well, that went fairly well. A lot of these welds are a little bit proud. I bet if I knew more about what I was doing on welding, I could get dialed in a little better. But nothing that I can't fix. It actually looks really well. So the next thing I'm gonna do, I think I'm gonna start try and tackle this piece right here. I'm gonna cut me a piece of metal that'll go in here. Let's get that welded in, and then I'll do some grinding. I'm gonna really cut a lot of that short. I'm not gonna bore you with all that, but I'll show you a little bit of it. Let's see what we got to do next. The last little piece on this passenger side is this little bracket that goes along the side. And it was so rusted out, I'm pretty sure it was a little bit longer, and it may have even had a bottom on it. So I'm going to create it that way. So I've cut a piece off this is from the line in the Jeep down to the thing is 4 inches. So I've cut a piece that's 5 inches wide. It'll be like this. And I've chalked this thing up here. I'm going to bend this again. I'm going to bend this. This is 45 or 90 degrees from here, which is good, but this one flares out. So I'm going to bend this one first, and we'll bend this one. Okay, so check this out. It worked out really, really nice. Now it's not going to fit straight up there. The neat thing is, because this is a wedge, you can just slide this up until it goes. But it turned out that my upper edges from there to where this is going to be, that is the right width. So that is my starting point. I just need to come down and find out. I know it's 4 inches is the bottom, so I'm going to trim off some of this. I'm going to bend this up and create a thing that I can tack weld down into that 4-piece. Pretty sure that's what it should look like. If it doesn't, it'll help give some strength. So we'll do some more cutting on this here in a minute. Well, here's what we ended up with. Just like what I thought. This is what I added. I don't know if the original had that or not, but I'm going to do that. I'm going to actually put a hole here, 2 holes here, and a hole there, and I'm going to plug weld that to the floor. This is basically the bottom of the A-pillar, and so I do want to give that support. I did something funky on this one where I folded these ends down, and I folded this because I wanted, it gives these end tabs a lot more strength than if I just folded the whole rear this way. But I think on the next side, if nothing else precedes that, I'll end up doing it differently. I think I will just fold this whole tab over like that. But I want to know if anyone caught my mistake in what I've done with building this, and if you already kind of know what it is, it's interesting because I do really good with 3-dimensional objects and thinking things out. You know, how you make a box if you want to make it flat and cut out all the tabs and this and that. As you fold it together, it comes apart perfectly. I'm pretty good at that type of puzzling. But I messed up because this is an angle. I didn't relieve. If you look at that, that's angled down. It doesn't angle across. I needed to cut, when I cut this, I needed to take into consideration that this was bent in and that this would need to have some extra meat there. Interestingly, when I go fit this in the Jeep, it is too tall. This all fits just right. I got to take off just like a 32nd of an inch and maybe a 16th of an inch probably. And what I can do is I'm going to take it off of here and here, and I'll leave it. I won't take off so much there. I'll have just a small gap there, and I'll just have to fill it with weld. So I was real shocked when I saw that. I said, dang, I can't believe I missed that opportunity. Anyway, pretty neat piece. I am going to now, get it the right height, get it where it'll fit in there, and then make some decisions from there. All right, so with all that work, it fits like a glove. That's going to be a really good solution for that. Now what I need to do is, I'm not quite ready to weld this in. I got to scuff it up, and I got to put some etch primer, weld through primer on it. I also got to prepare this area with some weld through primer. But my big issue right now, the reason I can't quite weld it in is The factory had some seam sealer down along this joint, which makes sense. It's a lap joint, and so we definitely need some seam sealer on the top and on the bottom side. So I got to prepare this whole section here, get it prepped, and get some seam sealer in there before I put this in and weld it in. So I think I'm running out of energy. I'm going to stop for there and get this uploaded, and we'll get to the rest of that stuff next time.
Jack it up.